Welcome back to your latest industry recap. A new era continuing for Etihad Airways, some problems at Kuwait Airways, and Hawaiian Airlines making changes to its business. Want to begin there, with the international network getting a bit of an overhaul, and as a result, route cancellations will be occurring. Under the Alaska Airlines group, a fundamental new era has commenced, which will look to reshape how Hawaiian Airlines operates moving forward. As part of that, difficult decisions are being made, especially from an international route network standpoint, as Alaska Airlines we know aims to make Seattle a leading global hub with the use of Boeing 787s. The changes are to be implemented in November, and firstly, Hawaiian Airlines says that the markets being cut are being done so for their underperforming nature, and that includes flying from Honolulu to South Korea, where there were 5 weekly flights into Incheon, followed by 3 weekly services to Fukuoka, Japan, and Boston's 4 weekly services. These moves are challenging for the customers who naturally utilized these necessary operations in response to evolving trends, but the reality is they've underperformed for quite some time and are not providing the return required for Hawaiian Airlines to keep them operational. Hawaiian Airlines' CEO said that while it's always difficult to suspend a route, especially for a market like Seoul where they've been present for 14 years, there always has to be a continued evaluation of the network, and despite the best efforts, the airline said, simply put, post-pandemic travel demand from Asia and even other market challenges have meant that persisting with Seoul has no longer become feasible. As for the airline's decision to suspend the other services, this follows their route commencements in 2019 and the onslaught of the pandemic, paired with many different market challenges which have persisted. It's meant feasibility no longer exists. Despite this, Hawaiian Airlines says they're still committed to Asia. So enough with the negative, what is the positive to come from this? Well, with all those last flights set to take place on November 19th, excluding the Seoul Incheon, which will happen 2 days later, they now have more capacity that has been freed up, and they're looking towards fresh and also existing opportunities to use the available capacity on more lucrative markets, which are in turn going to yield better results in the long run. Firstly, there will be an increase in service between Honolulu and Sydney, jumping from the current 5 weekly offerings to daily from December 18 through to January 31, so obviously in time for the peak seasonal travel demand period and certainly during the summer holidays in Australia. Additionally, starting in March 2026, they will be offering 2 weekly flights between Honolulu and Papeete. That's up from the 1 lone weekly flight currently provided to customers. During peak seasons, which start from November 21 through to December 1, then also December 19 through to January 6, you're going to see a 5th daily flight between Honolulu and Los Angeles, and lastly, a 4th daily flight between Honolulu and Seattle is operating from late November 2025 through to mid-April of 2026. Even with these changes, the airline says that guests are still going to be able to access the cancelled markets. Now, that is thanks to their extensive list of global partner airlines. However, now it's just going to be a stopover away rather than on a non-stop service. Over to the next story, where Etihad Airways is progressing firmly with the next era of its development as a global carrier and a Middle Eastern powerhouse. Speaking across recent weeks, the airline's CEO said that work to grow has actually been progressing really nicely, with accelerated efforts ongoing, and as part of those efforts, the airline already finds itself at least 2 years ahead of expectations from a passenger capacity standpoint. For example, the 20 million passengers carried in a year far exceeds what the estimated time frame for achieving that was, which was in at least 2 to 3 years. The hope would be now, under a revised plan, to hit 38 million passengers by 2030. That is a staggering growth achievement, and the airline believes it is on track to achieve this, having delivered on all the previous plans established. Additionally, the business has prioritized the growth of its fleet, aided by the recent delivery of the first Airbus A321LR, a jet expected to elevate the single-aisle division moving forward in the business. Etihad Airways has really long considered the A321LR as the perfect single-aisle jet to bring a wide-body experience to, so the size is not going to limit it, and the reliance on the jet will grow in the coming 4 years. Away from the LR, Etihad Airways has also brought its A380 back into service to thunderous applause, a decision driven by the surging demand that was seen across the international network following the pandemic. Definitely initially we're looking at the London Heathrow operation, but since the A380 has been deployed across more of your global cities. It marks a massive 180, remembering the Super Jumbo was not intended to return to service at all, the airline confirming in the past the previous axing, but now 7 units are back with another joining as well. Ultimately, to achieve the plans concerning passenger figures and the expansion of the network that would be required, continued delivery of new aircraft is going to be pivotal. Now, whether that is the newly delivered A321LR continuing to join the ranks, or the uncertified 777X. Etihad Airways has many planes in its backlog, which are already delayed, and further pushbacks in their arrival time could have subsequent negative ramifications on the business. Unfortunately, much of this is out of the airline's hands, with plane makers forecasting delays to the delivery of new aircraft years down the line due to the knock-on effects from damaged supply chains. See, for Etihad Airways, many of the following steps that are going to be undertaken are key to the development of the business, but also it's all trying to aim to avoid the missteps of the 2010s, arguably one of the toughest times for the business that really followed mistake after mistake, whether that was an investment in too many aircraft which destabilized the business, or also the investment of airlines, which if I was to run off some of the names such as Alitalia, Air Berlin and Jet Airways, you might spring up from your chair and think to yourself, I haven't heard those names for a while. And exactly, those investments compounded Etihad Airways' problems because of the challenges experienced. So they are going to try and do everything in their power to avoid that. So Kuwait Airways is the final story, and they've become the next global carrier to face fresh problems because of operational struggles. The chairman of the state-owned carrier said multiple things were impacting the ability to meet targets laid out in the development of the business, but aircraft deliveries were really the primary cause for concern. Kuwait Airways is ultimately just one of the many global airlines facing a similar unfortunate set of circumstances. In the case of the Kuwait-based company, well, they're struggling to take delivery of new aircraft primarily from Airbus, with the chairman informing Reuters that there's still 9 aircraft due. The 9 aircraft should be delivered over the coming years, but the thing is they're already seeing the effects of the delays driven by the associated supply chain constraints, which are preventing the shipment of these planes to them. And for example, they had hoped to cross the fleet mark of 30 units last year, but they'll be lucky to hit 30 units this year. So you can see we're running on an almost 12 to 18 month backlog of where Kuwait Airways are not getting the aircraft they require. And that's just far from ideal, whether it ranges from the development of their international network, the continued also focus on renewing the fleet, and more. If the planes simply put are not arriving on time, there is going to be adverse effects. Now, as 2025 comes to a close, they don't believe they'll hit their intended operational target fleet, but are more optimistic in the coming years that this will grow with time. It is going to be a watch this space, but they're just one of the many feeling something very similar. That'll conclude today's industry recap. Thanks for watching. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.